Welcome to the Efficientpreneur Show with Ahmed Al-Karemli, where you learn how to build and scale your business profitability online with less time, effort, and cost, so you can enjoy a fulfilling lifestyle.
Hi everyone, AK here, and welcome to the Efficientpreneur Show. Today I have with me Zach Miller. He's a business expert, author, and the founder of Hatch. Welcome to the show, Zach.
AK, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it.
So, what's your story? Tell us more about your story. How did you start in, branding space, goal setting space, in the online space in general?
Sure. So I followed the path that I think a lot of people are told to. Go do well in high school. Maybe I didn't do well in high school, but do well enough in high school. Go to college. Figure out what you want to do. Go take a major. And graduate from there, and then go up to corporate, get that corporate job, go up that ladder. And by the time I got to that corporate side of things, after 23 years of living, I recognized that I chose probably the wrong path. So I have a journalism degree in television news from West Virginia University, and I get to my first job out of college, enjoyed it for a year, and then the honeymoon ran off. It wore off. It wasn't fun anymore. And I recognized that I had skills that I not only had learned through going to school, but by being in TV news, but that I wasn't necessarily using them to the best of my ability. And so the quick and easy way to explain a newsroom, in my opinion, is imagine a bunch of egos, a bunch of negativity, and then when you're out in the field, you have to interview someone, you have to meet someone on the worst day of their life every single day, right? So there's a saying in news, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Which is why you always see negative stories first. So basically, you knock on someone's door, and you say, hey, how are you? I'm so sorry that your son was just murdered. Can I interview you? Day after day. And I'm like, I can't take this anymore. Like, this is too negative. Like, I'm a positive person. It just hits you over and over again. And so I didn't know what to do though. And so for about a year to 18 months, I would look at different careers in maybe TV or slightly in different types of media, but I felt like it was the same thing over and over again. And I was like, there's gotta be something else. And so I started doing CrossFit back in like 2010. This is the time frame we're looking at. And there was a guy there that had been doing some freelancing. And he was like, hey, I think I'm going to take kind of my freelance projects and start like a business around it. Would you be interested in kind of like overseeing that, running that, being kind of like the face of the company and growing it? And I was like, absolutely. Like, let's go. Let's do this. Like, I've been looking for something different. I feel like I have leadership capabilities. I feel like I can get my name out there. Let's go. And so that's what kind of got me for the first time kind of into my kind of startup entrepreneurship business life. I'd started a career when I was like 10 mowing lawns and things like that, and that was important as well in learning business. But this is kind of like after school, this is the first thing I did. And so while working at this business, while growing this business, I recognized that by doing things completely opposite than everyone else, and by educating people, you can get a lot of eyeballs on you, and that can start moving that needle so that you can hit kind of the goals or hit the success metrics that you want to. And from that, I started hosting these meetups, which in 2010, 2011 timeframe, meetups were still very young, very not used a lot, and they were incredibly important because I would basically tell someone to come to my office and act like I was an expert in something, even if I wasn't yet, and they would look at me as like this authority status, like, ooh, let's go. If this person's hosting a meetup, they sure as heck know what they're doing. Well, I didn't, but I was using those relationships, and I was meeting these new people to try and learn from them, to build my network, and it was this incredible thing. And still to this day, like 2019, a lot of people are still not doing meetups or events or conferences, and they're a huge way for you to gain kind of exposure in your career, whether you own a business or not. You can just bring people to you, and it's a huge opportunity. And through that, I started a business called Hatch, which has been a lot of different things, membership platform. We've invested in some companies. We've done events as well. And then throughout all that, within the last 18 months or so, I wrote a book called Anomaly, How to Finally Stand Out from the Crowd. and that's the quick and easy 6-minute version of Zach Miller.
So is Meetup still working the same? Is it still effective? This episode is brought to you by the Efficientpreneur Club. The Efficientpreneur Club is a private and affordable one-on-one business coaching club for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to build and scale their business profitability and performance with less time, effort, and cost, and without risking their freedom. So whether you are still figuring out the right business model, strategy, and pricing, or you need help to improve your funnels, ads, sales, and conversion, then the Efficientpreneur Club is for you. Your business challenges are not going to fix themselves unless you fix them today. And the consequences of not addressing that today is your business profitability and performance will not improve, and your relationships and health will continue to be affected. It's no wonder that building and scaling a business becomes so stressful over time, but it doesn't have to be that way. The Efficientpreneur Club will help you take your business to the next level with a private and affordable one-on-one coaching with me personally, tailored to your unique needs. I will help you clarify your direction, set a strategic action plan, and guide you step by step to build and scale your business efficiently. The Efficientpreneur Club will also provide access to an extensive how-to video library, the most highly recommended tools, and a supportive community of like-minded business owners to help you along the way with feedback, encouragement, and advice. The Efficientpreneur Club is the perfect place to be if you want to maximize your profits, minimize your workload, and scale your freedom and efficiency. So check it out at efficientpreneurclub.com and say bye-bye to generic courses, secretive gurus, and expensive mentors.
So I personally have kind of retired a lot of those events. I've either sold them off to people in my community or just let them go or whatever, just like literally just retired them. But I believe so, yes, right? So I have a client, their name is Array Digital. I recently started working with them, and I told them, hey, they do marketing, digital marketing. And I said, hey, you should do a marketing kind of meetup. They're getting like 60, 70, 80 people to their meetups each and every week or each month, and people didn't know about them before. Now they have this avenue that they can promote that, hey, like, we're the digital marketing experts in this meetup. We'll teach you these things. We'll have outside guests. I think they're a huge opportunity for people. They take a little bit more time because you have to physically get people there, and there's some logistics that you have to deal with, but it's powerful, and I think they've been incredibly and still very reliable from a marketing aspect for businesses or someone trying to improve their career.
You started an accelerator before. Did you sell it, or what happened to it?
So everything is still kind of under that Hatch brand, right? So think of Hatch as the umbrella, and then all these little things we'll talk about are just like little branches off of it. So in 2012 and 2013, we ran 3 cohorts. We invested in 13 companies, roughly $20,000 checks. Most of those, 11 of the 13 companies just straight out failed. Just straight out were done. One sold in the last year, and then another one is still kind of kicking along. So didn't sell it. It's run its course pretty much, and I think that's kind of natural. That's kind of standard for these businesses to kind of be there for as long as those companies are there. But the accelerator kind of turned into the membership platform because we were providing not only checks to these companies, but we were providing all these resources and opportunities for these people, and they're like, hey, I'm not in your, quote-unquote accelerator where we're going to put you through this rigorous 3-4 month platform, but all the things that are associated with that, I'm willing to pay you for access. And I was like, well, okay, let's figure out how to do that. So we started charging a couple $100 a year for people to have access to come to my office and get that access. And then people started calling or would email and say, hey, I want this access, but I can't come at Tuesday at 2 o'clock when you have your meeting. How can I get it? And I was like, well, we'll just start recording it. And so we kind of did an in-person platform, and then we had kind of an online platform, which ultimately turned into this thing called 1004. And it was just very powerful because we basically just started listening to what our customers wanted. They were paying for these opportunities, for these resources that were really supposed to be for that one group of people. And then, years later, they're they still want it. So it's
Do
pretty
you,
cool.
do you provide in the low level membership that you have private access to you as well, or just the community and content?
Yeah, so just the community and content access to me is a different kind of barrier, if you will. So.
All right. And how did you start growing the membership? Like from the accelerator, and then you turned it into the membership, or are you doing some marketing around it now online, like webinars or other things to convert more new clients?
Sure, all of the above. So when we first did the accelerator, 2012, 2013 timeframe, we had people apply. So then there was those people that didn't make it. They were on a list of people that would be included in some of the marketing. Then there was people who said, hey, I see the results that these companies are getting. They would be kind of put into like this list of people. And then there was just people that had been to our events and meetups before. We would just reach out and say, hey, we have this thing. It seems like you're interested in learning how to grow your business. You might want to come, check it out. And then so we would email them, DM them, direct message them, personal message them, call them, whatever, and say, hey, we think you might be interested in this thing. We've done obviously ads and things like that, but I think the most important thing that's always worked is you see someone that has a pain point because they've addressed it to you, and you address that exact pain point and kind of your copy to them, your text to them, and say, hey, we have this solution for you. If you want access, here it is. Here's how you get it.
So how do you find this pain? Like through the events or other stuff, or you have like kind of a funnel online to, or through emails, people reply you?
Sure. So depending on how we've met them. So at one point we had an office 5,000 square feet. We've gotten rid of the office side of it. But so like we used to have a sign up form. And so most people want a sign up form. Or if this is on your contact form on your website, it says, what's your name? What's your email? We're going to sign you up for this thing and you're going to get our newsletter. What we learned is that we could ask a little bit more probing question. So we would have the same thing, what's your name, what's your email? We actually would start asking for their phone numbers too, because people would be, we would call them afterwards and thank them for coming, and they were shocked by people saying that. So it was one of those things to stand out too, where it's like, oh, they had a good time, and they're following up by calling me the next day by just saying, hey, it's Zach, thanks for coming. But we would ask this question like, what's a current hurdle that you're going through? And people answer that question, and it's really like, it would give us ideas on how to sell to them. It would give us advice on what content to produce or what questions to start asking more in depth. And so there was that. Maybe in the meetups with them, we would hear stuff, or maybe they would kind of, on a contact form, ask that same type of question. But I think a lot of people, the standard is name, email. And we were like, let's add a little bit more to that: name, email, probing questions, saying what's the challenge that you're going through. And if they trust you enough at that point, they'll tell you. And it's pretty surprising, like how centered all these questions are. It's basically like, I need to make more money. And so
and then you reply by email based on the pain point, or you send them to a strategy call?
It depends. So we've done strategy calls in the past. So there's this thing that I coined the 50-10 challenge, which is basically a series of 50 doctor's visits in 10 minutes, back to back to back. So like if you go to your doctor, they're basically meeting with a couple of people an hour, and it's like bam, 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 bam. And so we would have like a list of these people, and I would call them, I would schedule meetings with them, I would have them in my office, whatever I could to give them a little bit, if they were new. If it was someone that I had a lot of contact with, maybe I would go a little deeper with them to try and get some of that information from them. But there's been so many things that work, so many things that don't work. It's amazing when something works perfectly with one client, and then you think you can use that exact strategy again, and it doesn't. You're like, oh, it's an outlier.
So after they join, then how do you keep them engaged? Like, do you send weekly content or emails with the updated content? Is the content always updated, or you just keep the community, initiate questions and the communities interact with? How do you keep them engaged?
Yeah, so when we were going strong on it, we were probably updating the content more than once a week. So we would do like a daily or a weekly, every Tuesday at noon meeting in person. We would record that, and then that content would do three things basically. The person that was in attendance could get it right then because they were in attendance. Then the second thing is they could get that content streamed live because we had basically a link live for it so that people could get that. And the third thing is then it was uploaded afterwards as a video for them to watch at a later time. And so, and all three of those things were are accessible when that content is, or the recorded content is accessible once the live content is done.
And
basically,
all the content created by you or other experts as well with you?
All created by me or Hatch, I guess, but not all of the content was necessarily me doing it. So it would be other subject matter experts, right? So like you could be a subject matter expert. So like maybe there's a sales training guy out there, right? There's a guy named Chad Stenzel. He would come in and give his 1 hour practice or 1 hour talk on that. Yep, and so he'd do it live, he'd get it, and then we'd take that piece, he'd do it in front of the people, then it would also again go out live, and that piece of content would live on our site forever. And then there was sometimes there was like resources associated, so like workbooks and stuff like that. It just depends, you know. Sometimes there's nothing else; it's just the video and you go. But sometimes there's workbooks associated with stuff like that, and so it was really just always feeding off of what other people were looking for, and we wanted to have kind of a toolkit or a toolbox of all the things that we thought was necessary to grow your business, to start your business.
I see you are focused a lot in your content about goal setting. Why you think goal setting is important?
I think people should be doing more than the status quo. I think we all can do a lot more in our lives, and I think personally I like to do really challenging things. And I think that if you can do something, if you can set your kind of standard a little bit higher, when those challenges that once before were hard come up, they're not as hard anymore. And so I think sometimes people have to make realistic goals, right? So like one of my goals this year from a physical standpoint was to run, bike, or swim 10,000 miles this year, which is roughly 28 miles a day, right? I did about a little over 2,000 last year. And my buddy was like, I'm going to do 1,000 this year. I'm going to do 1,000 miles running. I was like, well, that's not enough for me. So I set some stupid number out there at 10,000 thinking I could do that. Not really looking at that number, and since and realizing how difficult that is. So now I've backtracked and realized the number I can do is 5,000, which is roughly 14 miles a day, a little bit of swimming, a little bit of running, a little bit of biking every day. Not all together on the same day, but 14 miles average a day is what I have to do. The reason the goal is important in that is because if you don't have a goal, or if you don't have something, it doesn't have to be a goal. It could just be something in the future, right? It could be a bucket list item. What is something that you can do inch by inch to get you, stronger, better, faster in business, in life, whatever, right? And so you consume a lot of content, right, AK?
Yes, a lot.
Right? And so you're consuming that content to get smarter, to get stronger, to improve your mind, to improve your business, this show, etc. All those little things are just like little baby steps to get you better at life. And so whether it's, in the workout world, whether it's in the business world, those things are there to get you stronger. And so if you do a bunch of those little things, they make that big goal a lot easier to obtain.
Is it true if you write them down, you achieve more of them, or like bigger percentage?
I don't know. I know that you have to if you write down what you learn, I think you retain 25% more than if you just hear it or something like that, right? So like if I was in school, I learned something, I write it down, I will retain 25% more if I write it down. And so if you take that same mindset and put it in goals, you see it, you kind of live it, you believe it, and you go after it. But I don't know if you have to write it down. Some people do. Like I could look up and I could see that there's my goal right there, like on a whiteboard in front of me, right? Is that the thing that means I'm gonna get it? I don't know, but it's something that's there in my mind. I also have something on my phone that reminds me, and just in my mind, I know, okay, I have to do this every single day. And so I think every person's different, but I think the concept of like, hey, I have to do this thing every single day is important. And from a goal perspective, I think that a lot of people take too many days off. And I'm not saying like 24/7, like hustle, 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 or anything like that. I'm just saying a lot of times people find ways to go after something, and they don't have to do it every day. And I think that when you can create that real habit, it can be very powerful. And that no days off kind of mindset can be very powerful in making sure that routine happens over and over again.
What's the roadmap map to, like, from setting it to achieving the goals? Like, what's your structure? Do you set goals every year and then you have like a daily task, top 3 to act on, or how you go about it?
So for the physical thing, I'm training to do this a half an Ironman race in June. I signed up for it roughly 10 months before the race was going to start. And for that specifically, I know I have to work out every day, right? From a business perspective, my book comes out officially April 2nd, right? So April 2nd, and for this,
congratulations,
soon, right? Thank you.
Okay, do you have a copy of it to show it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Cool.
Gotta show the product.
Yeah, Anomaly.
Right? Every single day I'm trying to advance this, right? I think if I sat there and said, hey, I want to try to reach out and get on a TV show every single day, what do I have to do that, right? I have to reach out to a TV show every single day. I have to reach out to a publication. So like I had to reach out to you to be on this show, right? So if I can do one of those at least one of those every single day as a minimum, then at the end of the year, you have 365 times that you've reached out and tried to do that, right? 365 might be too many for some people, right? So I recently was reading an article, Michael Phelps, the United States Olympic swimmer, maybe the greatest Olympian of all time. Apparently, I think it was in 2012, his coach said, hey, I want you to start working out on Sundays. What do you think about that? And I guess he used to only train 6 days a week. And Michael says, I'm game, let's do it. And then his coach immediately says, you're going to be 52 more practices ahead of your competitors now because they only work out 6 days a week, right? So a lot of times you think about the big number in mind, but then if you can break that down into that little number, so 5,000 miles working out seems like a lot, but really 14 a day doesn't seem that bad. It's, 40, 50, 60 minutes, depending on how fast you are on a bike. That's not that bad. Right? But if you think I have to do 5,000 miles today, that can be really hard. So have that big goal in mind for a later time, right? You say that you want to get on 150 different podcasts, right? But to get there, you have to reach out to just one a day. So I think big mindset, big goal at the end, but then break it down to little things.
What's the difference between, like you mentioned, the big goal, and then you chunk it down into smaller goals to achieve it? Like, what's the difference between a big goal or a goal and vision?
I think they could probably be the same thing. A goal, a vision, something to look forward to at a later time. A vision could be a bigger set of goals, I guess. It really just depends on the person, and their vernacular in there. A vision is something that I can see a lot of people just saying it's the same thing as a goal, right? I want to lose 100 pounds, right? That's probably also someone's goal, right? Or that vision could be, I want to be the GOAT. I want to be the greatest of all time. To do that, you probably have to hit a series of goals from a series of years over and over and over again, right? Most GOATs, right? The greatest of all time.
I define it usually like the where you want to go, and it's usually something, it's not really easy to be achieved or unachievable,
Sure.
to lead you where you want to go, and the goals will help you, go there to where. So basically vision is the where. That's how I divide.
I always think that, like, if I like to look at sports, so I love sports. I always like to think about like sports analogies if possible. So I always a lot of people look at someone's career stats, right? Or they'll look at a 1 year stat and be like, oh, this guy had the greatest year ever. That's fine, but most running backs in the National Football League only last 3 years. So if one of those running backs just had one good year and then they had a 3 year career, was it that good? No, I like to look at the longevity of it, like that career, that person that was there for 13, 14, 15, 20 years.
Consistency.
that's who you think of for a long term. And so I'm constantly thinking of like my legacy and like how I can be the GOAT, how I can be this person that people are looking back, after a 20, 30, 40-year career being like, wow, he wasn't a one-hit wonder. He's done this thing for a long time. That's powerful. And so I personally, so that's my vision then, right? Like I want to be the GOAT. I want to be, the person that stood out so much that people are like, oh, there he is. Like he's a marketing wizard. He understood all these things, and he didn't do it just once. He did it for, the time that he was alive to the time after he was dead that people were still talking about him. I think that's powerful.
Tell us more about Anomaly. How do you define Anomaly?
So an anomaly is something that deviates from the standard. I think that's the line in the book, right? So most people blend in. So if you think about it from a data perspective, how many ads do you think you see a day? How many advertisements?
Like 40, 50 maybe.
40 or 50.
Yeah.
What if I was to tell you that you see 5,000 ads a day?
Wow.
That's 100 times what you thought. Is that right? Is that math right? 100 times? I don't know. So 5,000 ads are what we see every day, right? Imagine you've created this amazing business, this amazing process, all these things, but you didn't focus on standing out that first time. Imagine if no one ever sees you, right? It doesn't matter how great that business plan is. If you can't get that person to see you for that first time, it doesn't matter. And so I think a lot of businesses that I've worked with, stuff that I've done myself, we focus on the process too much of after I get the customer, how good is it going to be? How good is the product? But we don't focus enough on making sure that that person sees us, that brand that we want to hear us sees us, right? And so it is a lot of communication. It's a lot of creative things to get out so that people can see you. And so I think that an anomaly is something that deviates from the standard. It's something that doesn't blend in. It's something that gets people's attention. And I think that that's incredibly important. And I wrote the book because basically it was the same question that I had gotten for the last 10 years of my business career. Hey, Zach, I want more, I want it cheaper, and I want it faster. How do I do that?
So
how that's interesting.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And I'd answer that a bunch of different ways. And I was like, I'm terrified of writing a book. Challenges me. Let's do it.
So how to stand out in this crowded market, especially online?
I think a lot of people copy what other people are doing. And I think you can go back to basics, at least as of March 20th, 2019, you can go back to this basics by reaching out to someone and doing this thing that I call just say hey. Right? You and I met because I saw that you were connected to someone else, and I can't remember who it is at this point. And I saw what you were doing. That's how I met you, because you basically introduced yourself on someone else's content. I was connected to that person. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I think it was Free Up. Is that where I saw it? Right.
With
so I saw
Nathan,
you post something there.
Mm.
I know Nathan. Nathan's been on my podcast. I was like, oh, cool. I like AK. I like what he's doing. Let me reach out to him. Right. Most people won't reach out. They will wait for AK to call me. So what do I do? I try to get in the driver's seat.
Explain to people how to reach out to someone that you don't know, let's say to pitch something or to be on their podcast, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so I think oftentimes what people do is they will see something. The goal is to get on a podcast, right? And so what they do is they immediately drive towards that person's contact page and say, hey, I want to be on your show. When instead, the better thing to do is probably introduce yourself first and get to know that person a little bit better, and then they get nosy, and then they invite you on that show. Or after you built a little bit better relationship, and by the way, this can be done in like 10 minutes. I'm not saying this has to be 10 years. But by not just going in and saying, hey, gimme, try to give a little bit first too, can be very powerful. So I see you, Nathan posts something like, hey, what's your podcast? I said, oh, that's cool. I click your link. It goes back to your page. And then I can't remember if I just immediately reached out or what I did specifically. But oftentimes what I'll do is I will just reach out and say, hey, AK, saw your show, really enjoyed it, and that's it. And then what happens is you reach out, we start a relationship, and then somewhere in there, someone's going to offer something to someone. Someone's going to be like, hey, do you want to be on my show? Hey, can I be on your show? Whatever it might be, it just becomes a lot more powerful than just that first interest with that person being like, hey, buy my thing. Because here's what happens. When was the last time that you met someone for the first time and tried selling to them and it worked? It usually doesn't happen because that pain point that they're trying to address hasn't been brought up from you yet. And so you have to play this game, kind of a sales funnel game, where it's like, meet someone, have a great conversation, follow up with that person, which isn't what most people do. Most people don't follow up. Figure out what they do. Figure out if they have a pain point. Dig deep. Make sure that relationship is still good. Then once you know it's good, then you can say, hey, I have this thing for you. I think it could be a good opportunity.
Okay.
What do you say? What do you say?
What other like tactics or strategies that you share in the book to stand out, to become the authority, to look different in this crowded market?
Sure. So that 50-10 challenge that we talked about a little bit ago is something that's very, very powerful. I think a lot of people can give 10 minutes of their time to play like the doctor's visit. That's something that a lot of people who have read an early edition said that that's really, really powerful. So again, 50 10-minute calls over a day or two by basically addressing that person's pain point. You're not selling at all. So I have a client and a good friend, Steven Reinstein, Market Muscles, and he had launched his business to crickets like 3-4 years ago. And he's like, Zach, I don't understand why. I'm like, well, no one trusts you yet. So what can you do to get their trust? Well, get all of them on the phone individually for 10 minutes, only address their problem, and then hang up the phone. They'll be like, wait a second, why didn't he sell me anything? Then they'll go back to your website and you'll start getting sales. Or you could follow up with them a day or two later and be like, hey, just wanted to, if you're going to do this exact thing, I would follow up immediately and say, hey, it was great talking to you. Again, here is what your pain point is. Here's how we addressed it. Hopefully it will get fixed. And then maybe in your signature, it could say, free trial for Market Muscles, or free trial to AK's greatest coaching session in the world. And they're like, oh, well, that person helped me in 10 minutes. Imagine what they can do if I start paying them. It can be a very powerful thing.
How would you mix that, like standing out? Is that before you validate your business idea? Like you worked with startups. What's the steps that you usually take them? Like first they validate the idea and then they start, reaching out to people, or they just reach out to people to validate it, or how?
So validating in what respect?
If you have enjoyed today's episode, I would like to invite you to check out efficientpreneurclub.com. The Efficientpreneur Club is the right membership for you if you've been working to grow your business for a while now and things aren't happening as fast as you want. If you are tired of generic courses, secretive gurus, and expensive mentors who charge $2,000 to $5,000 a month, then fob you off onto sub-coaches or connect with you in group coaching calls. If you are already stressed out about your business model, sales, productivity, team and systems. If you are scrambling in the evenings and on the weekends and you never have time for yourself and your family. Those problems are not going to fix themselves unless you fix them today. Why? Because your business profitability and performance are not going to change unless you do, and your relationships and health will continue to be affected. Building and scaling a business becomes so stressful over time, but it doesn't have to be that way. The Efficientpreneur Club is a private and affordable one-on-one business coaching club for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to build and scale their business profitability and performance with less time, effort, and cost, and without risking their freedom. The Efficientpreneur Club will help you take your business to the next level with a private and affordable individual coaching with me personally. I tailor the program to your unique needs. I will help you clarify your direction, set a strategic action plan, and guide you step by step to build and scale your business efficiently. The Efficientpreneur Club will also provide access to an extensive how-to video library, the most highly recommended tools, and a supportive community of like-minded business owners to help you along the way with feedback, encouragement, and advice. The Efficientpreneur Club is the perfect place to be if you want to maximize your profits, minimize your workload, and scale your freedom and efficiency. So check it out at efficientpreneurclub.com and say bye-bye to generic courses, secretive gurus, and expensive mentors. Validating an offer.
Yeah, so I think a lot of businesses are very easy to get validated because it's usually a really good offer, right? It's actually, so here's a great example. I've sold a good amount of books of this already pre-order. What I've learned is that getting that person then to read the book is just as big of a challenge to get them to buy the book. So not just getting that person to validate it, but then getting that person to actually use the software, service, product, whatever you're doing, and then from there figure out of those people who's actually using it, right? Oftentimes early on you're trying to find kind of your champions. So if you think about a gym, right? A gym sells a membership because that person wants to lose weight, get fit, whatever. So they sell a lot of memberships, but then how many of those people actually keep going back to the gym? So do you want to sell to the person that is a super user, that actually uses that product so that you can get that endorsement and get other people and you can get the testimonials, you know, more money, et cetera, their friends, them telling their friends? Or do you want to get just all these people because it's the open promises of a gym and they never use it, right? And so I think when you're validating something, you really want to try to find those champions. Because if not, I think you have kind of misleading information. So again, I think it's really easy to kind of get an MVP off the ground, a prototype off the ground. I think it's really easy to try and get people to buy it because I think you can be persuasive enough to do it. I think really finding those super champions is difficult. And then that kind of in-between stage is hard to that next level. But I would, if you can't get money from someone to start, it doesn't matter once your product is out there. They're not going to buy it later. Right, so I love the idea of kind of pre-sales, validating products, but you have to get that beforehand because a lot of people think it's. I mean,
they waste so much
time
building the
website.
Waste so much
time.
And yeah.
I spent $200,000 building this app. Well, did you see if anyone wanted it? No, I think it's great. Well, just because you think it's great doesn't mean anything, right? You just wasted $200,000. What you could buy an apartment for that and then rent it on Airbnb and make $200,000 a year. Why wouldn't you do that? Or whatever, you know, it doesn't have to be super sexy. I think validation is incredible, and I think most people should be trying to get that. If you're trying to just build up kind of a community awareness, credibility of yourself, I don't think you have to have validation yet. I think you could be using that as kind of your, you know, I think the vernacular is customer discovery, right? And figuring out if there's enough of that stuff around to then maybe say, hey, I've interviewed 1,000 people from this similar 50-10 challenge. It seems like all of them are looking for, you know, X. Maybe I have the skill set to build that. Maybe I should start building that. Or I could start creating content to fix that. I think that oftentimes people, they want to build what they want, and they don't always build what kind of customers want.
So what's the sequence that you take people through? Like idea, offer, validation, scaling, or what's your usual steps? So, if I was meeting with someone for like the first, like, am I selling a product? So am I selling my services, or am I trying to sell them something different? No. If they want to build their own, let's say, business or offer, like which steps or like kind of sequence?
I would probably try to tell them to validate first. You know, build some probably don't even build a prototype. Probably in theory, think about who your target customer is, right? I think my target customer is moms with 2 kids that live in Cheyenne, Wyoming that own a dog because you're going to sell a dog product, right? That's what you're thinking. I'm going to sell a dog product. This is all theory. I have no idea what it is, right? I'm going to sell a dog frisbee, right? And my mom of 2 with a dog is who that family is in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So then I would start reaching out to those moms in Cheyenne, Wyoming and saying, hey, I'm building this frisbee for your dog that will do something special. It will never get chewed, or it'll never get broken because the material I'm using is going to be great. I'm thinking about selling it for $20. Once it's out, how many of those do you think that you would buy? Okay, I'll buy 3. Okay, actually, we're going to give you 50% off now. Would you buy it? And then it'll be delivered in 3 months? No. Okay, and how many of those no's do you get? Right? It's kind of like a Kickstarter, right? So most people will get a lot of no's, and if they can't get that credit card out then, they probably will never get it out. And so if you can't have a big enough group of people from a target customer to then a sale,
so test early and fail fast if it's not working.
Sure, and I tend to hate the word fail because I don't think you're really failing. You're actually you're not failing by spending the $200,000 on that thing that doesn't eat. I mean,
you're getting feedback. It's just I call the word failure feedback.
But I mean, like if you're building a product, you have to get tooling. Tooling is very expensive. People don't realize that. And so if you have one mold, it might be $20,000 to $400,000 for the mold alone, depending on what it is. That's an expensive venture to go into, to not have a lot of people telling you, hey, I'm going to buy that thing. And so if you can get some of those people to buy beforehand, if you can get some of those people to show extreme interest, and maybe even get a purchase order in there, I think you're better off than building it and then realizing you get crickets, which is the worst. You hate crickets, right?
Yeah. Tell us more about the 1004.
Yeah, so 1004 started as a mindset. So I live in southeastern Virginia of the United States, and I was at a job summit in my jeans and a black t-shirt probably, and there was someone, so this area isn't necessarily super growing as a startup community or anything like that in 2012, 2013, and someone was saying that all we need to do is recruit all these large businesses, like 4 businesses with 1,000 employees each, and that would fix everything. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, we're starting to see this resurgence of entrepreneurship in the world, in the country, due in part, I think, a lot to kind of Shark Tank. People seeing that maybe this is this thing that they want to do. The internet obviously is a big part of that, making it easier to make more money. You got a lot of IPOs from 2010 to 2013 that were popular, people making billions of dollars. That's always interesting. And so entrepreneurship is becoming this buzzword. And I was like, I actually think that if you could diversify that and flip-flop it and have 1,000 businesses with an average of 4 employees each, that would be better for every business community across the country. Not everyone's going to have 4 employees. Some might have 2, some might have 40, some might have 100. But it would be by diversifying that and having kind of an average of 1,000 businesses with 4 employees each, you would have a better opportunity at each of these startup communities across the country, across the world, possibly succeeding. And so that was kind of this idea, this kind of concept. It turned into a TED Talk. And then from there, it kind of became the membership program that we created, kind of always reminding people like, hey, like small businesses are cool, small businesses are okay. Like you can do a lot by not overinflating kind of your staff, like I think we have seen kind of in years past, because things are more efficient now. And ultimately, the platform is a place where people can go get resources, community, understanding, education to better their business, their career, all online at the fingertips, or as long as you have access to the internet.
Let me ask you some personal questions. Like, what's your daily routine from the time you wake up until you sleep?
So my dog wakes me up sometime between 4 and 5:30 a.m. His name's Ashbrook. Typically at that point, depending on how early it is, because he's 13 and a half now, he loves to eat early now. He's like, Dad, wake me up and feed me. So if it's like 4, I'll probably go back to bed for a little bit. But usually I wake up somewhere between 5:30, 6:30 every single day. I then make coffee first thing in the morning. And then for the last 130 days or so, I've been using the calm.com app, CALM apps. I've been meditating every single day. That's something that's been interesting that I had, because I read a lot of books and stuff like that, a lot of these successful people said meditation was interesting and good for them. I tried it. It's just nice. It helps get the day started. You can think. I do that. Then
Any hobbies?
Then I kind of... Then what?
Any hobbies like you do?
Not even, so sometimes I'll work out first thing in the morning. So if I work out first thing in the morning, before I do anything, I probably wouldn't meditate. So I try to train at least an hour, either bike, swim, or run a day, every single day, 7 days a week. Usually I do that sometime between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. And then per day I try to do one major thing a day. right? So today, shooting this with you is that major thing. Also at 9:30 this morning, I did a talk to a local business organization. Those are the two major things of the day, right? Everything else is like things that I don't have to be on my A game for, right? So again, back to sports, if you think about, you play football, you basically are playing 16 games a year, plus or minus if you make the playoffs. And so that means you have to be on your A game 16 times, right? You got to practice hard and do all those things. But most of the time, the thing that you have to be on your A game is what's most important. And making sure that you're on that A game for a talk like this, for a talk like I did this morning, a talk that I might be doing on a big stage, whatever it might be, that is where I have to be on my A game. And I think oftentimes I try and do that every single day. Not everyone has to do it every day, like professional athletes, 16 times a year, right? To 18 times a year.
So you have 1 to 2 main must-do tasks, let's say, and do you have a recurring tasks that you set in your calendar?
Yeah, so I try to work out every single day. I try to meditate every single day. I try to reach out to someone to get on some sort of show every single day. I try to reach out on some sort of social channel and just create new relationships with people every single day. But a lot of those things, if you think about those are the things that I do every single day, basically, right? Those I don't have to be on my A game on. I can be in my pajamas. I could be doing it while riding a bike at the YMCA, right? What else? I need to be on my A game when I'm talking to you, right? Otherwise, I can be, again, in my pajamas, or I could do something on the phone, right? So it's about figuring out how to do a lot of things, minimal task, because ultimately, I think like if you're on LinkedIn and you want to comment on someone's post, right? Like, do you really have to be on your A game for that? Probably not. You just have to have your phone out, your desktop app, and you just type it. Say, hey, AK, I love that content. This stuff was powerful. Bangarang, that's it. But I think all too often people are like, I got to be so on for this. It's like, no, like burnout is a real thing, right? And so instead of burning out, figuring out that, hey, all these little things, they're important. They're absolutely important. But you don't have to be on your A game to do them. You could do them at a B and a C level. They're like your practice, right? So that when you're practicing, you're better in the games.
What tools, can you share with us some tools that you're using that help you build and scale your business efficiently?
Sure. So favorite tools, I would say Audible. I would say the Google Suite. I use something called Productive, which is basically a thing that says, I did this thing today, and that's it. I did that thing, bam.
What is Google something you mentioned, the second
Google
one?
Suite? So so the Google Suites are like, that's what I use for email, their documents, their spreadsheets.
So what's the difference? Like I never used it actually, but I just remembered it. So what's the difference? Like, is it connecting the Google Sheets with the Gmail and the other stuff, or what's the main benefit of it?
I think they're all just separate apps under kind of the Google Suite of businesses,
umbrella.
Right? So like you have Gmail, right? So Gmail is one of those things, and then if you were to use Microsoft Word, Google's version of that is Docs, right? And so I just use Docs to think about talks that I'm doing, think about book that I'm writing, whatever. And so it's just a place where I can put all that stuff. It's just a word processor, right?
It's just an umbrella that all these different branches of softwares of Google it's under.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Got it.
And then let's see what else. I love texting videos to people. So like I'll do a video. Here's an interesting hack. So you have Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's where we met. When's your birthday?
11th of June, 1981.
Okay. So on June 11th, you're going to wake up and people are going to say, happy birthday, AK. I hope you're doing awesome. It's great to hear you. And it's great. I love getting those messages. On LinkedIn, you're going to get the same message as well. But here's the problem. They're very safe bets. What happens is you have all these people that are probably not really that active in your life that just push a button and say happy birthday. What I think that you could do that's very powerful is if you have their cell phone number or a way that you can direct message them, pull out your phone, open up your video camera, and do a quick little video and be like, hey, AK, it's Zach. I hope you're doing well. Happy birthday. Send it to you. Right? So I do a lot of stuff like that for friends, clients, prospects, people that I've met at conferences, and I'll just text them a video. Or I don't email them the video because I've not gotten good results from that because the way it's kind of included
use an
as
app,
attachment.
which is an awesome. I use it with the new members when I onboard them, like personalize the video messages to them. An app called Bonjoro.
But I mean, think about how easy that is, right? It takes me 15 seconds to do this, yet it gives them that personalized attention. So many people want to automate everything. It's like automate a receipt, sure. Right? Automate something that's the same for everyone. But how hard is it for me to sit here and say, hey, AK, thank you? Right? I could send you an email after this and be like, hey, it was awesome being on your show. Or I could send you a handwritten card. Or I could send you a video doing the same thing. Right? It's a lot more powerful. And I think people are lazy. And they're like, oh, I just want to automate this. I want to make my $1 million and call it a day. It's like, don't you want to make that $1 million year after year by just having great relationships with people? Because that stuff people will remember because everyone else automates things and doesn't care about the customer in the same kind of way. And so I think it could be way more powerful to personalize as much as possible.
Any top mentor that helped you the most in your business?
So I believe because of the internet, we now have these kind of virtual mentors that we've never necessarily met, right? So I would say that the person who has probably meant the most to me in my business career is, and this is kind of ridiculous, is Vince McMahon of WWE, so World Wrestling Entertainment. Okay. And so, you know, they just hit $1 billion.
I see a tough guy behind you, right?
Yeah, that's a lot. Right?
Okay.
I'm 35 years old and I watch wrestling. Yes, it's a little weird, I guess, right? But they're amazing at content. They're amazing at storytelling. They're amazing at building a community, right? They have 1 billion social media followers, right? And so they have 2 million subscribers to their online network, the WWE network. They just do, in my opinion, they do things very, very well. And that storytelling is so very powerful. And from afar, I've watched what Vince has done by taking over his father's business back in the 80s and building it into kind of a worldwide juggernaut. And I think that's pretty cool to look at that and see how he's done that. And so that would probably be the biggest mentor that I can think of from kind of like a business perspective.
Top 3 books.
Top 3 books, all around the same kind of theme. Resilience is something that I think is really, really important. The first one is North by Scott Jurek. It's a story about how he sped ran the Appalachian Trail, which is a mountain range of roughly 2,200 miles spanning the east coast of the United States. Kevin Hart's book, Can't Make This Up, a book about how he kind of got through life and how he heard a lot of no's. And he just kept climbing and kept fighting for it. And then a book that I recently read, which is really, really interesting, by Jesse Itzler. It's called Living with a SEAL. It's how you do things that suck every day. And so he hired this Navy SEAL to train him basically for 30 days of his life. And the Navy SEAL, his name is David Goggins. David Goggins basically tells Jesse Itzler, he's like, hey, like, these are all, it's my rules or nothing at all. And so, you know, this Jesse guy wants to not be kind of in the status quo anymore. And so he's a fit guy. His wife is actually the lady who started Spanx. And so a very, very wealthy family. And so they do like crazy amounts of burpees and pull-ups and running. And so, but resiliency is something I don't think a lot of people talk about, right? And so like you hit a roadblock, you hit a wall, people quit. And I think if you think about, you know, some of the most successful people, the most amazing anomalies in the world, they're people who don't quit. They're resilient. They push through. And so I love hearing stories about that and how they kind of got through these really, really challenging things. And so all three of those books kind of on the same theme of resiliency.
What's the best advice that you have ever received?
So indirectly, Nike's tagline is "Just do it." I'm gonna say that. Just do it.
Take
right?
action. Yeah.
I talked to someone today, and she goes, "I've been thinking about doing this podcast. I really want to do it, but I'm scared." I'm like, "Well, just do it." She's like, "I don't know," and I'm like, "But if you don't do it, you have everything ready." So I think that's just powerful. I think it's probably the greatest tagline of all. Just do it.
What makes you fulfilled?
I love smiling. I love being happy. Hanging out with friends and being able to do things that, a decade ago I didn't know that I would be able to do. I haven't had to have a quote unquote job for a long time. I love doing that. I love smiling, spending time with family, friends, doing things with my dog, and doing things that are absolutely crazy and challenging. At the end of the day, I think small wins are really, really important. So, for example, like if I do something for the first time ever, so as I'm training for this Ironman race, I have to do a lot of new things. And so a couple weeks ago, I ran 2 hours straight. And at the end of the 2 hours, I just did a simple yes. And I celebrated that win. And people think that there's something very powerful in celebrating that thing as you do it. Mm-hmm. And that's fulfilling to me. It's like, oh, I just did my first 15-mile bike, 30-mile bike, 40-mile bike. Yes. Celebrate that, embrace that, because that's powerful, because most people don't embrace those little things along the way. And it's like, yes, I did this thing. Yes.
I'm also into sport.
Yes, I just got the AK interview. This is what I wanted. Yes. Right? That's what we should be celebrating. When you said, yes, let's do it, I was like, yes. That's a powerful
I do
thing.
it in squash a lot when it's really push you up, lift you. And really appreciate the interview.
Awesome.
Last question, how people can contact you?
Obviously the best question of all, right? So my name is Zach Miller, and everything that I have on all my handles is Zach Miller Says. So ZACK Miller, MILLER Says, SAYS. That's also the website, ZachMillerSays.com, and then all my social handles all across at Zach Miller Says.
Thank you so much, Zach. Really appreciate your time.
AK was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and see you soon with another expert.
Thanks for watching or listening. It means the world to me if you would leave an honest review of the show on iTunes or any other podcast platform that you are listening through. And big thanks to all the people who have already reviewed the show.
Discover how to build and scale your business profitability and performance with less time, effort, and cost. Check out efficientpreneur.com.